Hello and welcome back to Smug and Play, where we're playing all your favorite games from the PC Gamer discs, and we are on disc 9 in August 1995. And our theme for this series is space,
Yes.
the final frontier.
And graphic adventures from 1995, not made by LucasArts, which is
Yeah,
another theme.
yeah.
In a year dominated by landmark adventure games from LucasArts, several other publishers dared to release a torrent of garbage on the world. Actually, some of it's not garbage at all. And some of these games I actually kind of love and own multiple copies of for no reason. What's the first one we're going to talk about? I am excited.
We're talking about Space Quest 6, The Spinal Frontier.
Yes, The Spinal Frontier, which is an appropriate title, kind of. Now, The Final Frontier was, I believe, the subtitle of Star Trek V. Is that correct?
Yes, which is the Star Trek that they let like Bill Shatner
Yes,
direct or
that
something
was
like
a
that.
big mistake. That was
It
the
has
one
some very interesting ideas.
philosophical elements.
Oh, well, it's true. You meet God at
You
the
do
end.
meet God.
Spoilers.
He's not a spoilers. He's not the best guy. I think they beam out of there.
Yeah, and there's also this thing that he keeps on saying where he says like, "I know that I'm gonna die alone."
Yeah.
And I'm with other people, so I know I'm not going to die now, even though this is a very dangerous situation.
Oh, right.
It really doesn't make any sense to me.
I
But
mean,
that's
he
a
could
big
suddenly
deal.
be alone, any moment. Oh, oops, wow, okay, should have seen this one coming. Anyway, we don't need to talk about Bill Shatner's directing career or his acting career, but it is important to note that Space Quest VI is the sixth entry in Sierra Online's long-running sci-fi spoof adventure series that began all the way back in 1986 with a game made by two creatives, Scott Murphy and Mark Crow, who put together the early games, and then as Sierra Online began to sort of self-destruct and teams fell apart, were less involved with the later titles. But here we are. Space Quest 6 is a re-envisioning of this series with much, higher end graphics, as we're going to see shortly. So why don't we'll start that up.
And the premise is simple. You're Roger Wilco, who is a dumb janitor, but he somehow winds up having to save the galaxy many, many times throughout the series, and there's a little clip at the beginning of this, so I think it'll communicate the rest of the details you need to know.
Yeah. So Roger Wilco is kind of this hapless space janitor, constantly being poked fun at by the narrator, and he's kind of Buck Rogers. It's not really clear who he's a direct parody of, but as we begin here, we can see, first of all, the ship that this takes place in, the Deep Ship 86.
Deep Ship 86.
Which is great. DS9, Star Trek DS9 is, of course, Deep Space Nine is on the air at this point.
Did the Deep Space Nine ship look like a jockstrap?
No, it's a space station.
Okay.
And so, no, the jockstrap is original. So one of the things you can immediately see is there's going to be this interesting sort of melange of smooth mid-90s 3D rendered graphics, gritty pixel art, and sort of saturated cartoony characters that you can see as either being schizophrenic and indicative of poor art direction, or you can see as charming and very much of this era. So this interactive demo is actually very special. Most adventure games of this period, when they put demos on CD, they didn't give you an original scenario. They gave you part of the whole game, usually the beginning section, so that if you were to go and then buy the full retail release, you'd just be replaying those first 10 minutes. Sierra pulled out all the stops for Space Quest 6 and created a wholly original scenario with complete voice acting, just to show players what's going on. And then when you buy the game, this scenario doesn't occur at all. It's all new content to you. So that's really going the extra mile. LucasArts didn't do that for Full Throttle. They didn't do it for the Dig. So I really appreciate that. And as you can see now, the board, the Bjorn cube, not the board cube, the Bjorn cube has appeared and turned everyone, I believe, into lemon sorbet. This is the kind of humor that we'll encounter in this game.
I guess I'm the only crew member who hasn't been
very
transformed into a scoop of lemon
deadpan,
sorbet.
sarcastic humor. Yes,
Maybe I should
Deadpan,
look
which is
around.
voiced by like the best narration ever.
This is the best narration ever. So, what this game is really known for, as well as Space Quest 4, is its incredible snarky narrator who is constantly eviscerating Roger, the main character, and that the narrator is voiced by Gary Owens. Now, people who are 70 years old probably remember Gary Owens as the announcer from Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. But if you're not 70 years old, you probably know him as the voice of Space Ghost from Space Ghost Coast to Coast. And he is fantastic in this game, as he is in Space Quest 4. Space Quest 5 had never got a talkie due to confusing budgetary and planning issues at Dynamics and Sierra. But this game has complete narration, and we can get a sample of that by looking at some ships.
This baby's a sleek streak Corsair with push-button tranny and dual airbags. These balsa wood shuttles are really maneuverable, but they don't last 2 seconds in a phaser battle.
Yeah, don't build a shuttle out of balsa. We can see
the Enterprise shuttle here.
Here's the shuttle from the NCC 1701D, the next generation
Some guy wearing
Enterprise.
a Delco air filter on his face parked this shuttle.
Not a particularly flattering description of Geordie LaForge, but somewhat accurate. So what you're seeing here is that Space Quest spoofs sci-fi. Now, the early games are really spoofing a lot of Star Wars, as well as some earlier Buck Rogers stuff. When Space Quest 5 happened, it shifted very hard to Star Trek spoofs, especially Star Trek Next Generation spoofs. Space Quest 6 samples a little bit more broadly. We got some Star Wars over here with the Imperial shuttle. We have the Enterprise here. And we'll also get jokes about Blade Runner, and also some like less well-known sci-fi.
Hear a disembodied voice saying,
And also Carmen Sandiego. We
Yeah,
got everything. We got a little bit of everything.
So an interesting note here: the subtitle of this game was not originally The Spinal Frontier. The original subtitle for this game was supposed to be "Where in Corpseman Santiago is Roger Wilco?" Now, apparently, Broderbund got wind of this and threatened to sue, and they changed the subtitle to The Spinal Frontier, which is still kind of appropriate given that there's like a inside the human body element here. But,
Yeah, I mean, we should say, even though it doesn't show up in the demo, that eventually you take a sort of a trip through human body to,
This is the hatch leading into
again,
the Starcon
it's sort of like a Magic School Bus.
Yeah, it's like
too.
Magic School Bus inside the human body.
I think it's just amazing how broad the parody is.
Oh, yeah, you go into Windows at one point, and like...
Oh, yeah.
You go into Windows at one point, you're like... You go into someone's body, like the settings are so diverse. So here we are inside the shuttle. I think one of the things that we need
The
is
shuttle
in
closet
here.
contains an EVA suit and helmet for those infrequent repairs.
There's so much to talk about. Oh, so here we have sort of the signature pixel art style. It's so detailed. It almost looks like an NEC PC98 game. It's in 256 colors.
This is the shuttle's personal effects stowage compartment.
And as you see here, I have an inventory as well as sort of a verb bar. This is interesting. This is using the SCI 32 engine. And previously, Sierra Games had put the interface up here in drop downs. But then when LucasArts made some of their games like Monkey Island 2, Day of the Tentacle and stuff like that,
games.
the Scum games moved the verbs down to the bottom, and Sierra, clearly looking over the fence, decided this would be a great idea. Of course, they didn't pull this off until '95, when LucasArts had moved on to more immersive presentation using the verb coin and simplified controls, and it got rid of all on-screen UI so that you could see more of the art, which I think was progressive. But still, this is 640 by 480, so we're getting,
SVGA.
Yeah, we're getting real graphics here.
All right, you gotta open that glove compartment there.
Which is, in Space Quest 4, there's a similar thing. There's a wrecked hover speeder or something like that. You end up taking stuff out of the glove compartment. So let's pop this open here.
A janitor never runs out of uses for duct tape. I'll just help myself to this roll.
Now,
Surely no one will miss these pliers, since everyone around here is busy being lemon sorbet.
So when I was a kid,
Who in the world left all this trash
I just
in here?
loved the sense of
Isn't
humor
somebody
in this
supposed to
game,
clean up
and
the shuttle when it comes back from a mission?
it's important to note that
Wait. Oh.
the creative vision for this game did not
Doesn't
come
look so
from
bad in
the
here.
original creators of the series, Scott and Murphy, the quote-unquote two guys from Andromeda. The creative lead on this was a man named Josh Mandel, who made the Wild West spoof, Freddie Farkas Frontier Pharmacist, which has an equally wacky sense of humor. It's considered by many to be sort of a cult classic and a lost classic in Sierra's back catalog. That was what he worked on prior to this, and then he did about 90% of this game, and then Sierra was always mismanaged.
Don't pick at it. You'll only make
had
it
a
worse.
change up in management, and Josh Mandel gets pushed out. They contact Scott Murphy, one of the original creators, to finish up the game, and he does so. But he doesn't have a lot of communication with Josh, and what happens is that a lot of material that was intended to go in the game to do things like clarify puzzles. There's a lot of interesting, hints, in-game hints and things that they had intended to put in to make some of the more obtuse puzzles solvable. And Freddie Farkas' Frontier Pharmacist has some very sort of in-depth, intricate puzzles, but they're more or less fair, and the information that you need for them is all in the game. That was the plan for this, but a lot of stuff fell through the cracks when they had that big shift in who was leading the project, and unfortunately, as a result, the final game has a number of puzzles that can't be solved without the manual, that were not intended to be copy protection, but ended up being that way, as well as some things that just don't make sense. So we're gonna go.
Don't touch that.
Go to Roger's quarters. Yeah, I mean,
Roger's quarters here.
Yeah, it's sort of like, I mean, there are a few instances aside where, you need the manual, but I think in general you had to like purchase some sort of
walkthrough. Yeah, there was a strategy guide that was sold alongside this, that was, I think, very necessary.
Yeah.
But Scott Murphy was not happy with his contribution to this game. He later posted on a forum somewhere his exact thoughts, basically saying that I still don't really understand what was going on in this game. They should have canceled it after they kicked out Josh. And I am the opposite of proud of my contribution to it. I would shoot myself now if I had access to a weapon, is basically what he wrote on this forum.
That's
it seems
way too negative for this, though. I mean, I understand that, the people who had played a Space Quest game before this didn't like the change in direction, but there are a lot of people who this was their first and only Space Quest game, and you know, they enjoyed it either for the humor or just like, you know, there's some fun puzzles, and it's like a good story, sort of.
It's a good story. There's great writing. The narration is perfect, and the production is generally quite good. So the quote unquote true Space Quest fans play the originals from the 80s. Dislike the change in tone. They dislike that there's a big like Star Trek Next Generation spoof element. And they're confused by the introduction of a new love interest for Roger in this game. Roger already has a series-long love interest in the form of Beatrice Winkmeister.
I love that name.
But
I love it.
What's interesting is that people say that like Josh Mandel had like gone against the intentions of the original series creator in introducing a new love interest in Stellar Santiago, the Carmen Sandiego stand-in in this game. But Josh Mandel and Scott Murphy were in communication on this point and actually both agreed that things had just gotten too weird with Beatrice Winkmeister, and that maybe there shouldn't have even been a character like Beatrice Winkmeister in the series. And so that was very like intentionally phased out. So do you remember what we have to do in this?
You need to get the clapper. You need to get the clapper.
Oh, right.
Yeah, which is plugged into the wall.
Yeah, right. So I'm going to take a look at that. Now, I remember...
This is your old clapmaster.
And we got to get the plug.
On and off with a clap of the hand.
Both of those.
I remember playing this demo.
In this room, mostly for Space Quests 1, 2,
You did?
3, and 4.
There are a lot of plugs.
Really?
Yes. There's some good... No. So I played this demo long after I played the original game. We played the original game together back in the day. I don't know why we had this game. How it landed in our laps.
Was it bundled with the... Because I can't imagine that we purchased this game separately.
Yeah, I have no idea how we ended up with it. But I didn't play this special demo until later because this was pressed into early copies of Phantasmagoria as well. But this was not a broadly distributed demo because it requires CD-ROM. This is a CD-ROM only demo with all the voice acting. Now, here's one of the things that people don't like about Sierra adventure games and any adventure game from this era: the pixel hunts. There's, I think, something I need here.
Yeah, you need to get the prong.
Right. And as I recall, if I just touch it, I will die. Should I kill myself?
Sorry, you need to wrap the...
I need to wrap the pliers in the duct tape.
Yeah.
But if I kill myself now, will it just be funny, or do I have to restart?
I don't want to
I think it'll be fun.
Narrate too much.
Anyway, so Space Quest was known for... you could just start again right there, which is lovely. Space Quest is known for killing off Roger in humorous ways. And in Space Quest 4, which a lot of people love, because it has Gary Owens as the narrator, but it's, you know, an earlier game in the series before the focus changed, before Josh Mandel was involved in it. There are all these deaths, but they're not great because you can die for almost any reason in Space Quest 4. They try to integrate some action or timed elements. You can die for just entering a screen at the wrong time. Like there's a killer death drone coming down the street. You happen to go to another screen just when it's, you know, going through, and you die, and you're back to the first part of that area. So things got a lot better. I mean, clearly they were looking at LucasArts games and looking at how they handled, you know, death and progress and things like that, and said, let's take the antiquated stuff from Sierra games, like the point score and random death, and just do it for humor, right? We'll give you points for stuff when it's funny, you know, and we'll kill you off every now and then, you know, just for joke, but make it part of the learning experience with no real penalty. So it's very progressive for a Sierra game. So looking at our pockets here, we're gonna have to use this.
I think I'll try imitating some of the smarter maintenance engineers I've observed through the years and wrap the duct tape around the pliers handles.
Yes. And then we can use this. Oh no, we have to click on this and hit play.
Yeah, kind of.
Now we can find just the right pixel, safely remove it, and then...
Alright. Then
Do I have to fix this? Is that the
I
idea?
think this is one of the pins from the Clapmaster's plug.
maybe you have to put it in the.
Ain't she a beaut? Well, I've got
You
my
keep on
Clapmaster's
eyesing everything.
Yeah.
Now you choose it. Maybe I don't know. Who knows how this
Okay,
I
works?
that's
didn't think that
repair.
would work. Go
Great.
figure.
Now, as I recall, I
Gosh,
also need to
I
be
guess
able
I've
to
proven that I
distract
have
the
ability to
Bjorn
be more than
Yes.
just a
using
So you
their
need to
favorite
now-
food. Is that right?
I could also be a
Yes, you
mediocre
need to use
electrician.
the food generator thing, the Soylent,
Yes.
which is on the deck.
Okay.
So
But I think I have to read about it through the COM port, don't I?
This is your personal comp.
Some
However,
interesting,
personal communications are sent directly to this compost
decision
station
about where
rather than
walking
being
there is.
transmitted to every compost on the ship.
Okay.
There's
You wouldn't want everyone reading
Here's our
the
Beatrice
steamy
Wankmeister
messages you get
reference.
from Beatrice Wankmeister, would you? You bet you would.
Gary
then-
Owens. Okay, so I think if we go into the database here and the
Yep.
entity database, we gotta look up the Bjorn, right?
yeah,
Known races.
Known races.
That sounds right. A through E. This isn't tedious at all, but believe me, Sierra's done much worse.
I feel like I'm gonna have to write down the number for you.
Okay, you get a
We,
pad.
we probably should have
Get
prepared
a pad
for
and
this.
paper.
Yeah, let me get a pen.
Okay. Half humanoid, half kitchen appliance creatures, the scourge of the known universe, seek out civilizations in order to assimilate them. Okay, so far so good.
We're very old school on
Okay.
this.
Eclectic knowledge utilization. It's then applied to creating newer, shinier kitchen appliances. This is how the Presto Hot Dogger and Daisy Seal meal are. Okay. So, if we continue through this, we'll see
I
that
got this.
they eat a peculiar mixture of basically industrial waste. You got
Alright.
it? You got it down?
I got it.
It's kind of a long number. It also looks like a phone number.
All right. So now
Okay, so now we gotta go to
to 8 rear.
8 rear, because the one in Roger's quarters, spoilers, is not functional.
Obviously a 10 forward reference, I guess.
Yes. Clearly. There's so many references though. So the captain is this lion, right? Who is kind of a parody. He's called Captain Kielbasa. He's kind of a parody of the Kilrathi from the Wing Commander series. It's Mr. Soylent. Obviously a parody of Mr. Radar from
Yeah.
Space Quest and Soylent
There's a
Green. and
there's a funny song that plays.
Oh, that's right.
Like to sit around and veg down in the dark like moles. But me, I'm just the kind of girl who loves the open air and bits of unburned hydrocarbons below.
Tell me when you want the number.
my hair. The Soylent Clear at last is here with
I don't know. I can
clear
listen to this. This is good.
message.
It's upbeat. It's up tempo.
Like me and you and
It's also very scientifically accurate. Okay.
You
All right,
shouldn't try to
7,
open this door
4.
by tapping on it. You'll strip the gears just like you
Okay.
did to the replicator in your quarters.
Okay, I did the wrong thing. Can I do 7, 4, another
6, 9.
69.
Of course. 4, 1, 0.
Alright. And from the vastness of space comes some chow. Excellent. So I believe that's
You can't
actually
detach that
all we
without a sight.
need.
Yeah, now you're ready to go to the bridge.
You know, something I don't hear a lot of people talk about, but on most sound cards, the soundtrack to this game is actually really nice. Now, it doesn't sound all that great in DOSBox. I think I'm emulating an SB16. I don't know what I can't remember how I configured my sound. I think I haven't configured it for SB16. But if you have a later Yamaha card, I have a Yamaha DSXG PCI card I was playing this on my other machine, and like the Cantina song, you know, that's in the bar on Poly 760, that is a banger on Yamaha DSXG hardware. So let's go to the bridge and confront the Bjorn. I love the vacuum.
love that.
Yeah, it's just so great.
All right.
The animation is also fantastic.
You gotta
so I
plug
think-
the clapper in.
Yeah, is that what I do first?
I think so.
Yeah, okay, so I have my pockets. The clapper. I like the clapper into this nearby here. Okay, then this end.
Clapping at the plugged-in Clapmaster doesn't seem to help. Perhaps I've got to plug the other end into something first.
Did I do it in the wrong order? Or do I need to... Because I want to do this.
Maybe that's not a good idea.
Do I have to plug
He
it into
might
him
want to
first?
assimilate me.
No, I think you just put the food down. I think when he comes, you plug it into him.
Oh, I think you're right.
Clapping at the plugged-in Clapmaster
that
doesn't
right?
seem to help.
Well, let's try it. Let's
Perhaps
put the
I've got
food
to plug
down.
the other end into
This
something
could,
first.
this could go poorly. Alright. Yeah, put
Just
the
a
food-
demo. Look on the top of the sofa with the SNES controller.
Just to grab his gamepad. Okay. Oh.
Oh, maybe now you need to come up.
There we go.
There you
Just
go.
took a while to load.
Pick up the toast that came out of his brain.
So we'll take a
But
look.
Bjorn in his death throes has disgorged toast. Mucho grosso.
Mucho grosso. Yes, that's that is not an actual language. It's Esperanto, perhaps.
Guess I won't need the toast. It has no power here.
Yeah. Okay, maybe not.
What
And
can I
then
do?
he has to get his belt.
Oh, that's right.
His belt has the lemon sorbet conversion.
All right.
Yes.
It's
Device.
a super cool lemon sorbet
Bioconverter, there you go.
bioconverter.
Now, these puzzles are completely logical, as you can see, but the ones in the game, I think some of the ones in the game actually make more sense. It's unfortunate that the tricorder / data quarter puzzle, a lot of the clues for that were left out. The ones that Josh Mandel spent a lot of time putting together in this interesting like comic book format. But a lot of the puzzles I also felt were both clever and enjoyable. For instance, at one point in the game, you have to escape from the brig and you do this by building a statue of yourself out of the fruit that's delivered to your cell. And you keep on just glomming fruit together until you create this thing that looks a lot like you. And it was a really cute puzzle, and there are quite a few like that in this game. So can I just... What can I do?
You just use it
Can
on
I
the
just hand it?
sorbet.
I'll just give this
No,
lemon
use it on the sorbet.
bioconverter button
Oh,
on the
no.
Bjorn belt a push.
Am I gonna
and
turn
see what
myself
happens.
into-
Oh
sorbet.
no!
Is that what's going to happen here?
All right. The belt begins to thrum with electronic
What have
light.
you done?
I should have...
Oh.
should adjust the
I've saved
frame
all
alright.
the
skip.
crew members from cleansing the
I should
pallets
adjust
of
the
Bjorn.
cycles, but anyway.
I
Anyway.
wonder what incredible adventures lie in store for me and the crew of Deep Ship 86 Space Quest 6.
Yes. The classic Space Quest. Oh, it was all simulation. So,
Holodeck, probably.
yes.
Oh.
So, let's talk about the reception for this game, having just played its demo. So, generally speaking, critics regarded this as nothing special. Next Gen gave it 3 out of 5 stars, dismissed it as being essentially identical. They said essentially identical to the previous 5 installments in the series, which I don't believe at all. I think that there's a broader range of parodies, and it's funnier in some ways. And Gary Owens was only in Space Quest 4, so it's the only other game that's got him. PC Gamer wound up giving it 82%, saying it was quote-unquote not the best of the Space Quest series, which is hard to believe having played all the other games in the Space Quest series. I don't know what about the intro trilogy people liked. 4, as I said, was great, has the same narrator, but has all these random death that it's not is not enjoyable. So yeah, it says it's a couple step backwards as far as graphics and voiceovers are concerned. I don't think that's the case either. I mean, Space Quest V didn't get enough of a budget. So Space Quest V is interesting because that one's made by Mark Crow. He went to Dynamics, which is a subsidiary of Sierra, and made that without any help from Scott Murphy. And it never even got a talkie. Like, it didn't get enough of an investment. So I don't know why the critics and long-term fans alike were so...
haters gonna hate.
Haters gonna hate.
I don't know. It's like, again, I think it might be a generational thing where I think people who hadn't played those games seem to like them, especially, you know, we were young at the time, but I think like it was like humor that was sort of more adult, but it wasn't like offensive that your parents would like, you know, immediately delete it from your hard drive.
Yeah.
So I think for us, I think it was like this really cool thing that like had this like level of humor that probably we weren't exposed to from anything else.
Yeah. I mean, it's absurdist humor, right? Monty Python-esque humor that's been married to parodies of sci-fi properties that we know of, as well as stuff from, you know, child edutainment, like Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, The Magic School Bus. There's a Street Fighter 2 game in here, and there's this great story that you have to go find the programmer who's like a drunk out on the streets, and he like trade him a bottle of whiskey basically for some cheat codes that you use to beat the local like shark. It's like literally a shark person who hangs out and you know, like bets people money that they can't beat him in Stooge Fighter. And it's also like Three Stooges thing. There's so many parodies sort of woven together, and fairly well. The game is very literate too. Like, as a child, I remember having to look up the words churlish and burlesque in order to understand what these MODI, which are like, you know, wetware programs for like, you know, cybernetic implants, were going to do to me. And I really like this game. I bought the Space Quest collection when Vivendi got the rights and they released the Space Quest collection. I got it and I played through all of them on Windows XP and its little DOS box, and I appreciated the original Space Quest redone in VGA, and I love Gary Owens in 4, and I like the Star Trek TNG parody of 5. But for me, this is always the one. Like, and looking at Sierra games more broadly, like this is the one that came closest to actually being an enjoyable experience, because that wasn't something that Sierra always pulled off.
Sierra was great at creating these games and doing the writing, and you know, I think even LucasArts couldn't match the writing quality on some things. So
yeah, there's the jokes in here are pretty good. I mean, Sam and Max and Day of the Tentacle are maybe written a little bit better, you could say.
Maybe, but you know, I just think it's a shame sort of what happened with Sierra. You said they're already mismanaged, and then they and Blizzard both got acquired at a similar time by a company that then had like a huge accounting scandal cooking the books, and so basically Sierra, and I don't know how many programmers or whatever they had, but they just got pawned off like between like 5 different owners in a very short period of time. So yeah, it's kind of a shame, and that's why we don't have. I think that's why we don't have Space Quest 7. I think Wikipedia would tell you that there just wasn't interest. And that they failed after Grim Fandango didn't have very high sales.
I mean, we talked about the critical and fan reception of this game, both of which we think were kind of a shame that they really overlooked the value of it and what it did. In terms of sales, so the good news was that Space Quest 6 sold twice as many copies as Space Quest 5. The bad news was that it cost 5 times as much to make as Space Quest 5 took. And so from a financial standpoint as well, Sierra became kind of less interested in it. So that's really a shame.
Yeah, across the board for the video games industry. I mean, that's why all these companies got bought up, because they couldn't finance the next round of video games. But anyway, I think it's a great game. It's definitely worth playing, even though it's old.
It is.
I guess is what
Yes.
I would say.
Seek this game out and play it. It is a lot of fun. You will want to have a walkthrough so that you can, not get frustrated, but understand that, the people who touched this game really wanted it to be something special. Josh Mandel definitely wanted it to be something special. Scott Murphy tried to do his best given the horrible situation he was in. And I think a lot of what was intended for this game did come through. And this is still a real adventure game classic that is sadly overlooked.